Hey everyone, this is me, the Undead Viking, and this is the game I'm going to be talking to you about today. It is called Badlands, Outpost of Humanity. Now, as you can probably guess, this is a game about Euro farming and controlling of an No, it is about running your own little post-apocalyptic gang in a nuclear wasteland. This is going to be a very heavily thematic game. You're going to roll lots of dice. You're going to be blowing up and beating up your neighbors as much as possible, and in the end only one person can possibly win. The reason it's called Outpost of Humanity is because there is a central area on the board, which is this outpost, basically like a town, that all of you are going to be vying for control over at any given time, mostly because the inside of the outpost is like one of the best places ever to take the stuff that you collect, the resources out in the world that you collect, and take it there and to sell and turn into hard currency. And the currency and money in this game is worth points, as well as fighting monsters is worth points, getting allies is worth points, and so on and so forth. It is a point-driven game. The first person to 100 points is the winner, and it's just a lot of fun. So let me show you how the game is played. I'll give you a little overview of the rules. I'm not going to step into each and every little minutia. You can go ahead and check out the rule book online on the Kickstarter page, and you can check that out if you want to read that. But I should give you a good idea of how the game is played. All right, so let's do this. Okay, let's learn how to play Badlands Outpost of Humanity. Alright, so I only have like the one base set up. Normally this is a multiple player game and everybody will have their bases on the other sides of the board, but just because of space constraints, you're just going to have the one here. Each player will get a leader. Here's this leader. And they are indicative for the world here, and like there's like another one, another wasteland, if you will. So the leader will go on your player board. You'll get some starting resources, some fuel, some bottle caps, money, and some weapons. You'll also get these cards as well. These are like tiles. And when the game is published, I do believe they are going to replace those with these cool miniatures as well. They sent me these super cool minis that but they only sent me one set of them. But these would be used in the place of those, is my understanding, when the game is published. But these are really, really awesome. So, regardless, you have 4 different types of these tiles, and those are the things you're going to be using as your actions on your turn. You have your settlers, which are kind of like your go-to collectors of items that you possibly need. They can't really be stopped. They can't really be injured. You'll use them to collect if you lose a battle and your cars get broken down. You can send them out to collect them and bring them back so you can use them again. You will have these two. Those two represent your raiders and your marauders. They will be the things that fight for you. The raiders are slightly tougher than the marauders. And you can probably barely see this, but you can see there where it says a max 5. What that does is if you equip them with weapons, they have like a maximum of 5 weapons. These have a maximum of 2 weapons. The more weapons you have, obviously, the better you are at fighting. You also have this caravan, and your caravan is, it isn't really armored well, it can't really fight, but it is your main use of being able to go out and trade and make money. Now, you win this game by getting 100 points, and you can get 100 points a lot of different ways. You can get allies that'll give you points. You can kill monsters and enemies out on the board that'll get you points. Also, for every coin you get, every bottle cap you get is worth a point. So there's lots of ways to get those 100 points, but the first person to that will trigger the end of the game, because they will win when they get to that 100 points. There's also treasures you can find and things like that as well. So just keep that in mind. This isn't like a set turn type of game. This is a game that, like, as soon as one person achieves the end goal, then the game is over. So when it is your turn, what you're going to be doing is you have several things you can do as far as actions go. During your turn, and none of these have to be done in certain orders, right? So, like, you can move your gangs, and these are considered to be your gangs. You can move your gangs to different spots on the board, and then take the actions that are there, and I'll talk about that in just a little bit. You can send your caravan to the outpost, or from the outpost back to the settlement. When your caravan is in the outpost, as long as it hasn't been taken over by somebody else, and I'll talk about that in a little bit when I talk about combat. When you're in the outpost, then you can do the actions within the outpost to trade for items, get coins, that kind of thing, and then you can come back. Obviously, you want to get that caravan back here, because if you can do that, then you can dump off your stuff in your warehouse. And just because, I should mention, just because you have things in your warehouse, it doesn't mean necessarily that they are safe. You can be attacked in your little homestead, though it can be very difficult to attack you. You can send your settlers out to do their actions. Normally, they will go. Usually, they go to the gas station, or they'll go to the junkyard. If they go to the gas station and junkyard, they can collect they can collect fuel, or they can collect scrap at the junkyard, and they can do that for free. It doesn't cost you any fuel to send them out there, and they automatically get those items. They can't be attacked. They can't be stopped. And I think that's there basically. So if you do end up in a situation like where you don't have any fuel and you can't afford to send anybody out to go do anything, you can just always get a couple of fuel at the gas station by sending your people out there. And these can be done in any order. So you could send your settlers out to get that. They can bring fuel back, and then they could use the fuel to send one of your other cars out. So I think that's why that's there. You can sell your resources. Any excess resources you can sell to your fence within your own place. You get 1 coin for a resource. You just discard them, and you're going to get a coin for that. If one of your, you had a battle and your car got destroyed, one of your actions can be that your settler grabs that and returns it back to your base. And whenever you move your settler, you turn them over to show that you've used them, just, to show that they're they've been used for that action. So you don't use them more than once. When you return a broken down one, you can then fix it for a scrap in your home like as an action. You can repair them, so they can be able to be used again. And you can also transfer resources as well. Now, any of those actions you can do in any order, right? So just you can take your pick, but you're limited obviously to your actions because of the fact that you only have the 4 cards, the 4 different things that can take those actions that you can do those. Alright, so now just to go a little more in-depth into the different things that you can do. I already talked a little bit about the settlers as far as like going and collecting either the broken down cars or getting some scrap or some fuel, but going to the other places. But okay, your caravan. So when your caravan goes to the outpost and they're here, there's several different things the caravan can do within the outpost. The big things that your caravan can do there are like some locations like there's a trader here that like you can sell and buy items at your trader, and generally speaking, you can get a better deal on your stuff at the outpost trader than you can with your fence back at home. Now, it should be mentioned that it does take 2 moves for your caravan to make it. You don't just there's 1 move here and 1 move there, and while they're at these crossroads locations, they are very vulnerable to being attacked. That's why you're usually going to be sending one or both of your marauder or your raider with them at the same time, because it takes 2 turns to get to the outpost. Sending a caravan all by themselves is just asking the other players to attack them and destroy them. Now, you can take up to 10 items with you from your outpost and bring them to sell your goods when you get to the outpost. So keep that in mind as well. You can place those. You have this little player board over here that allows you to place whatever equipment is on there, and that's important because of the fact that if it does get attacked and successfully attacked, then other players would be able to take those things and leave with them. And so that's a good you have to have an accurate representation of what they're carrying. So when you are at the outpost, there's a few things you can do. Every time your caravan enters the outpost, you may immediately draw one card from the rumors deck. Now, these are just like obviously like little cards that'll have different things on them that'll tell you what happens. Like this one says, Artifact Trader. Discard this card during your turn and perform the following action. Mug the trader. You may search the discard pile for any item card and put it into your warehouse. Or you may discard any one item card from your settlement to gain 7 caps. So it's just like a card that you can hold on to, something that breaks the rules and adds some of like like little story aspect to the game, if you will. You can go to the trader, as I said. And then the different things are worth different. A scrap is worth 2, a fuel is worth 3, meds are worth 3, and weapons are worth 6. And so you can buy and sell there at the trader. There is the Outpost Casino, where you just offer up a certain amount of your money, and then you roll a die. 1 to 3 you lose, and a 4, 5, or 6 you win. So like you can obviously get a big win if you can double up your money, if that's the case. And then also there's the pit, which is if you grabbed any allies, you are able to go ahead and like basically sell them into the fighting pit, and you can get 10 coins or caps for doing so. Not the nicest thing in the world, but if you need money, it's something that you can do. So those are the different outpost locations. Now, the outpost can get attacked and taken over, and if you do attack and take over the outpost, you will get access to the outpost ally card. So like this card is worth 25 points if you have it. It's just a card that you can place in your base, and you have access to basically, and you control the outpost. And then if you control the outpost, then nobody else can come in to the outpost, and so you kind of have obviously really good control of the area, and that's a really big bonus for you. But the other players obviously are probably going to gang up on you and take that back. They don't want to leave you to have that for an extended period of time. All right, so what do your raiders do? Well, raiders get to travel the rest of the board. There's all these different locations on either side, every corner of the board, and they're also the ones that are going to be fighting. And I will talk about fighting here in just a little bit, but the different actions that you can take in each corner. So each of these places is like a location that you can have encounters, except for like the fuel. The old gas station is a place where you can go, obviously, to get gas. When you visit the gas station, what you will do is you will roll a die. Remember, each time you travel, it's going to cost you fuel to go and travel. So just keep that in mind. But if you go there, if you roll a die, if you roll a 1, 2, or 3, you get 2 fuel. If you roll a 4, 5, or 6, you get 3 fuel when you travel there. All right, and you can go to the junkyard. When you go to the junkyard, which is here, and I apologize, I was talking about the corners. This is kind of a corner space as well. When you go to the junkyard, what you do is you roll a d6 again, and depending upon what you roll, you can take certain items. Now, if you roll a 1, you can't get anything. But if you happen to roll a 6, let me find my 6. If you happen to roll a 6, or like any of the numbers except for like 2, you can kind of monkey a little bit with what you roll. With a 2, with a 6, you can get anything, because like depending upon the roll, 6 points on a die allows you to get a weapon. But you could also get a fuel and a med, because those are both 3 each. Or you could get 2 fuel, or you could get 2 medicals. Or, if you want scrap, you could get 3 scrap, because scrap costs 2 to get. So when you go to the junkyard, you roll a die, and it's kind of, a random aspect. But you can always just, mix and match and do whatever you wish to do that. Now, if you roll, and you didn't like what you roll, you have the option of discarding caps from that you have. Basically, that's considered like story aspect is like you're paying the local scavengers to help dig for you. So if you desperately needed a weapon and you rolled a 4, you could pay 2 caps and you could get a weapon to counter for doing so. But your total result can never go over 6. You can't go there, you roll a 6, you pay another 6, and you get 2 weapons. You can only ever possibly get a 6 in that situation. Now, when one of your gangs, one of these 2 cars, they travel to one of these locations, 2 things happen. One, whatever the resources are listed on that location, you can gather. Which, like in this case, over here, you can get either 3 med, or you can get a weapon, or a fuel, and a weapon and a fuel. So there's the slash there. Up here, you can get a weapon, plus a scrap, plus a fuel. Down here, you get a weapon and a scrap. And you can go ahead and go there and you automatically get that. Then you can draw from one of these decks that are in those locations to basically you're exploring that area and you're trying to discover what's there. So when you just draw the top card. You've probably played games that maybe Props has this. Definitely games that are thematic driven usually have encounter cards like this. You draw the card and then you just see what you get. And so in this case, it says like you get this. It's an expert driver, and you get this as an ally. And it says here, life is a road. During the raid, add 2 to your die roll result whenever you're trying to escape a fight, because you get an expert driver. And this could be an ally that you can have in your car that will help you in those whenever that particular if it was this one they would have that. And once again, you would take these and you would place them on the like specific spot to show where they are outfitted. Now, I mentioned outfitting. I should mention this. So whenever you send out your raiders, what you're going to do is you're going to outfit them over there. And the big thing is that, as I said before, like these have a maximum of 2 weapons. These have a maximum of 5. Now, they can carry more, but they can only ever use 2 in a combat, use 5 in a combat in those situations. So any resources that they're going to carry, you're going to put face up on the spot. So if you're going to put weapons on there, you just place them on there like so. But for any sort of like items and allies cards are placed face down on the card, because the other players don't know exactly what you outfitted them. So if we'd gotten this before, you place it face down like so. Now, I should mention that when you are actually going here, you have to make sure that you actually have space for taking those items, if you will, like when you're exploring the different locations. So make sure you are, like when you're going someplace to explore and you're trying to get things, you leave space in the car or your raider when you send there. Otherwise, you're going to get there and you can't take anything back because you don't have any space to do so. And then you can also carry as many caps as you want as well. And then obviously, like, you have to bring the caps with you. Like if you're going to the Outpost, if you're going to be spending that, you can't leave them here and then like charge it to your base, right? And then also, obviously, when you stack up a bunch of stuff on one of these things, the other players are going to see that and they're going to want to like possibly attack you to get those things. So when you also, the maximum combat value obtained through weapons is 2 and 5, and then you can equip them the same way, but the equipped card limit is limited by that 2 and 5 as well. So like if we had this and we had another weapon, that would be the only 2, whereas the Marauders could have the Raiders have 5. I misspoke. Raiders would have 5 and Marauders would have 2. So you have to keep that in mind as well. Now let me just show you some of the other types of cards that you can draw in these locations. And so remember, you're always going to get like the resources that are listed there, but you can get things like, so like you have like a bulletproof vest. Let me see if I want to find, like, so you can get like these things where it's like it's this big giant minigun that you can send and attach to one of your cards. But notice how it's rechargeable. You have to have one weapon to activate that you discard when you use that. I want to find what's called, okay, so here you have like things like a hound. So like it would be an enemy. When you went there and you searched, you'd find this and you have to defeat. And when you defeat them, you'll notice there's a point value for these things. So you would defeat them and you get those points associated with that enemy. And I wanted to find one of these. There you go. So occasionally you'll find these things that are like armored doors and locks. And these are all over. Now to open these, you actually have to find another piece of equipment that says that this can be used to unlock this type of door. And so, but when you do, if you find this and you can't open it, you actually leave it on the board sitting there. And if somebody else can get over there and find it, they can then unlock it and get the item that they get, so they get a weapon in that situation. So there's lots of different things that you can find in all these locations, and it's one of those ways. Here, I'll actually show you. There's the electronic passkey, and it says it's a one-use item, able to unlock one armored door during a location encounter. So you'd have that would be able to open that up. So it's these things have like they'll have a lock that would open up doors over here and that sort of thing. So it's rare that you'll find the key that you need in the spot that you're at. So it kind of forces you to move around the board. All right, so that's kind of like the collection and the resources and all those things that you're going out there. So how does the combat work? And that's like, obviously, that's going to be a big part of the game. When you are out traveling and you have stuff that other people want, and you are going to have situations where like you will either, like maybe you're just protecting the path, right? Waiting for your caravan to get done and come back the next turn. But while you're waiting, perhaps a player will show up and decide, they want to try to fight you, and so they will just move, their car into, or their raider into the same spot, and then a combat will ensue. Now, combat works pretty straightforward. It's just going to be dice that you're going to roll, and it depends on like the different, how many weapons you have and how many cards you have. Now, if you attack somebody and they don't want to fight, they have the option of trying to flee. Caravans can only flee. They can't fight. So if you attack them and they don't have anything, they can flee. What they can do is they roll a d6. If they roll a 6, they get away. Now, that might seem really tough, but you can, if you have any fuel, spend the fuel before you roll to add 1 to the roll that you make. So if the caravan had like 2 fuel, they could say, I'm going to spend those 2 fuel and I'm going to roll the d6 and I hopefully get. So that case, that would work perfectly. So 4 plus 2, 6, they'd get away and no combat would occur. Now, here's one of the things that kind of stinks. Caravans can't fight, so caravans are always going to try to escape, no matter what. And they might burn fuel to try to do it as well. If you try to run from a combat and you are you're facing, and you actually could fight back, and you try to flee, but you fail, you don't get to roll dice during the combat. Your combat happens, and then the other player gets to attack you, and basically you don't get to do anything in return when they do so. Now, mind you, combat can occur at the outpost if you're attacking the outpost, and it can occur if somebody decides to attack your settlement. On your settlement, you have the ability to place weapons and scrap on these locations to kind of show that you have both protection and that you have weapons. And you can put those in 5 different spots, giving your outpost the ability to defend itself. So if somebody wants to race in there and attack you, they have to not only they have to defeat your defenses before they can get into your warehouse and try to take your stuff. But when combat happens, it's pretty straightforward. The attacker will roll however many dice they have, and they roll, and 4 or 5, this would be a horrible roll for them. 4s, 5s, and 6s are successes. 1, 2, and 3s are misses. So if we're just going straight, like, and then if you rolled, like, there would be a 1, 1, 4, we get 1 hit. When you hit somebody, what happens is they lose, like, they're going to lose a weapon that they have. They're gonna and that weapon is destroyed. If you have meds, you can use a med to negate a damage, and you can keep firing. Obviously, as you're fighting, as you lose weapons, you're going to lose dice as well, and you're not going to be able to use them to fight. After a round of combat is done, you have the option to try to retreat again. If you don't try to run away, then you just keep fighting. And fighting will keep happening until one person runs out of weapons. As soon as one person is out of weapons, then they are considered to be destroyed, and that's when you flip the card over, and that particular they're done, and you're going to have to send out your settlers to grab them on your turn, and then bring them back to have that car fixed. And I should mention, I apologize, I think I misspoke. It's when you're supposed to lose, like basically when you take a hit and you can't discard a weapon token is when you are destroyed. So technically, if you got all your weapons destroyed and there was 1 round of combat left and that was the end of the round of combat, and you tried to retreat and you fled successfully, then you wouldn't actually get your card destroyed and you would get away. Combat is a very, very big part of the game. You are going to be fighting each other quite a bit. And the fact that, like, it doesn't, obviously, when you get destroyed, the other people get to loot, your anything that might be left in that particular vehicle. If there are multiple vehicles on the spot, you get to pick as the attacker. They'll get to pick which one they want to attack first. But you will resolve all the combats that are in that location. Like, the good thing about combats is, like, yes, you can get your car destroyed, but it is very easy to get it back and get it fixed and rolling again. It's a slow setback, but remember, this game is about the race to 100 points. And any time that you don't have your full complement of all 4 of your actions on your turn, it's a bad deal because of the fact that, like, you're basically running at a fraction of what the actions that you normally should have. Oh, I wanted to show you one other type of card before I got to my final thoughts here. And I wanted to find this. So, there are things that are like treasures here. Like, here's one. Perfect. So, like, here's, like, this golden watch. And, like, if you grab one of these things and, like, you notice it counts as 10 points. Like, things like this are in all of these packs. And these are huge. And you end up putting these in your warehouse face down. You don't want the other people to know that you have things like that because they are totally, like collecting those are a big chunk of points. And I've definitely had games decided when players, like, they're like, and I won. Because they had, like, 2 or 3 of these cards. Now, obviously, if you have people, like, storing, several of these cards, like, here's another one, like this precious gem. If you see people, like, storing a bunch of these in their warehouse, that's a pretty good sign that you need to, you probably think about attacking that particular warehouse. And, like, here's another one, like this gold nugget. If you see somebody and they're stockpiling these things, that's a good sign that you need to get over there and invade them and raid them and take them down. Because not only do you need to stop them from winning, but that could be enough points to actually put you over the top and put you into the win. Now, there's a lot that goes on each and every turn, but it all feels really, really thematic, which is exactly what I wanted from this game. This made me feel like I was in that Road Warrior Mad Max universe, a genre of movies that I really, really enjoy, and just all around, this game was just exactly what I expected it to be, and that is a really, really good thing. But let me talk more about that in my final thoughts. Alright, thank you very much for learning how to play Outpost, the last humanity stop over from the galaxy, whatever. Now, it's, as I mentioned, like, the Mad Max kind of post-apocalyptic Road Warrior universe. I remember my dad taking, I had to see Mad Max after the fact, but I remember my dad taking me to see Road Warrior when I was a kid. And I remember thinking, whoa, wow, I was just blown away by it. The whole idea of the character of Mad Max was, like, really, really cool. And I definitely, once I found the first one, Mad Max, I was like, this was really awesome. And then I remember my dad taking me to Thunderdome as well. Not as good, but still a pretty cool movie, right? I just like the idea of it. And obviously, that Mad Max movie that came out a year or so ago was pretty intense and pretty amazing as well. It was something that I watch that movie probably once every, like, 2 or 3 weeks. Just have it on the background just because it's that good. But regardless, so I've kind of established the whole thematic area of the world and what I really, really like about it. And I do like when we try to have a game that puts us into that world, right? And it allows you to kind of feel that immersion, feel that story, that narrative, and you can kind of live it out. Now, this is a kind of a weird game for me. It's kind of a hybrid, right? Because definitely it's resource driven. You're going out, you're scavenging resources, and I do like the fact that the resources kind of have, like, ultimate purposes. I mean, you use scrap to repair your cars and make and to make defenses for your settlements. You use weapons, obviously, to fight. there's kind of like a weird nihilism there. It's like, I must go and use weapons so I can collect more weapons, so I can go and fight, and so I can collect more weapons. I mean, so yes, there is a bit of maybe a story there somewhere, but you know, so, but like obviously fuel and things like that. I mean, there's all these things about the game that they seem to fit, right? And they you know, it kind of makes it really feel like you're building that settlement. It makes you really feel like you are kind of racing against everybody else at the table to just become, you know, like the most influential leader, that can take over this little like last area of the world, right? And then of course you think, well, great, so you took over this outpost in the middle of nowhere. Why? That of course also gets kind of sad and depressing as well. So I try not to dwell on that. So ultimately, the fact of the matter is that what this game is exactly what I wanted it to be. I wanted this game to have a really great story, really great narrative, in which I could sit down and play a game over a couple of hours with my friends, where we would just beat the tar out of each other and just have kind of a last man standing moment. This is kind of a game that doesn't really exist that much. I mean, we tend to make games now that kind of step away from having direct confrontation too often. And I mean, I can play both kinds of games. I know I said that in lots of these videos. But I am a thematic gamer mostly, right? And so this one really, really, really appealed to me, and it did not disappoint. So if you like these types of games, I think you'll really, really like this one. If you want, you know, high-speed chases, explosions, gunfights, you know, last man surviving type of situations, then I think you'll really, really like this, and you should give it a shot. So there you go. That is Badlands Outpost of Humanity. If you have any questions about it, please ask away. I'll answer those as best as I can. Thank you very much for taking time to watch this video, and until next time, have yourself one heck of an awesome day.